Welcome to the Minutes to Win It podcast. I'm Jason Gilbo, JGilbo11, breaking down tonight's NBA 10-game slate. Pretty sizable one in comparison to the couple smaller sites we've had this recent stretch or so, but decent-sized night, and we're looking at some pretty solid options as far as games go. Kind of early in the morning here, well, noonish now on the East Coast, so some value could open up throughout the day as we've seen guys starting to rest more towards the end of the season here, but some pretty friendly totals tonight. You got most of them. You got 7 over 200. You're looking at Detroit, Dallas 206, Atlanta, Cleveland 206, Charlotte, Philly 206. But that's a 15-point spread there. Some blowout concern. More so on the Charlotte side, just because Philly's so battered with injuries. Those guys are going to be playing minutes anyway. Milwaukee, Orlando 207, Sacramento, Miami 212. Remember, Boogie is suspended tonight. Phoenix, Washington 214, Golden State, Boston sitting at 222, and with the 12-point spread. Looking down low, you got the Knicks and Nets. That's going to be kind of a place to hit value there. Looking at guys like Shane Larkin, possibly Derek Williams, maybe even Thomas Robinson if we see some guys sit in that front court like we did last night with Brook Lopez. Maybe Thaddeus Young sits. Utah, Minnesota 194. Minnesota, they had easily their worst game of the season against Utah last time out, and Utah being the home team needing to pretty much lock it up here down the stretch, trying to get into the playoffs. Not expecting much out of the young Minnesota Timberwolves tonight. You can pretty much look at that Washington, Sacramento, Miami game, Golden State, Boston. I mean, yes, there's a 12-point spread, but Boston should be able to keep things close there. I love that game. I like the pace. Even if Curry plays three and a half quarters, those guys are likely going to be hitting their value pretty well. So there are a lot of mid-range options to take a look at, but really sticking with those West Coast games for the most part tonight. Looking at point guards, not a lot of injury news to talk about there, which is nice. A couple of guys to keep an eye on as far as just injuries and resting goes that you could see happen. Rajon Rondo probably not going to be sitting tonight just because Cousins is already out, but don't be surprised if that does happen anyway. Kyle Lowry, he's another one who's dealing with some elbow soreness, so he could be a rest candidate as well. But outside of that, you're really just looking at Deron Williams, who's doubtful. You're going to see JJ Barea, who was marked with questionable tag, being his wife had a baby, so you're taking a look at Barea coming back tonight, more probable than anything. Tougher matchup against Detroit, but the guy has been playing well. I'm going to reserve him more so for GPPs just because Detroit's not the most favorable defensive opponent. Jose Calderon, he's another one. Likely not going to be playing. It is a nice matchup for whoever steps in. You like a Kasey Grant, you could see more Galloway. It was a situation that was pretty split. Otherwise, I mean, you're taking a look at really down low. Shane Larkin's kind of the only viable option I'm taking a look at, facing New York, who's middle of the road against point guards, and Larkin's been playing well. 11, 3, and 6 over the last 6 games, played right around 20 minutes. Back-to-back games in the 30s, so you do like that. A reasonable floor right now, and I think he does show upside. He showed it against a tougher match against Cleveland. It just overall, I mean, his stretch against tougher teams right now has been really impressive. So he kind of gets a night off as far as DVP-wise goes, so I'll be taking a look at him. Back up top, you got John Wall, Curry, kind of your top options. I'm leaning more so Wall in this one, just in the matchup against Phoenix. One, it's just an easier matchup. Yes, Curry did go off last time against Boston. Shot just 9 of 27, 33% from the field. Was hot from 3. That game did go numerous overtimes. He played 46 minutes and 68 DK points coming out of the night, so remember that. I don't expect this game to go to overtime, nor can you predict games to go into overtime, but really I just see Wall paying off his price tag a little bit more than Curry tonight. Kemba, he's a guy who really not on my radar tonight, just with the blowout concern. He's priced a little too highly for me. Has been playing particularly well, and I think you could see a matchup, where he just kind of goes for 30 to 35, and kind of like he did last time out against Philly. And really, I mean, 8K for that, I'm not really paying that range. Kyle Lowry, Rajon Rondo, guys that aren't really on my radar tonight. Rondo more of a GPP play just because Cousins is out. He did take a higher usage on offense when Boogie's out and shot the ball a lot more. But tougher matchup against Dragic, who I will be leaning on tonight at those price tags. Him and Knight just seem to be the safer way to go. And if anyone sat in the Cleveland side, LeBron or Kevin Love, you can take a look at Kyrie Irving as well. Outside of that, you're looking at guys like Ish Smith, Alfred Payton, Shelvin Mack kind of in GPP situations, but for cheaper in that 6K range. All three carry decent upside, but yeah, not the most consistent players. And the matchups are a little less subpar, but I could see definitely a guy like Mack coming through, Ish Smith as well, who's been playing well and logging heavy minutes. So keep an eye on those guys. Outside of that, you're not looking at too much. I mean, you can punt with guys like Rivas Vasquez with Bayless sitting out. But really, outside of that, you're not looking at much. Shooting guard tonight, there are some top options. I got some guys in good spots. Nicholas Batum, of course, he's a small forward on FanDuel. Coming off his monster triple-double against Philly, he's going to be a popular play. I mean, really, back-to-back 50-point games there. He's been playing well. Decent floor. Love the matchup. A little curious about the blowout, see if that happens again, but Charlotte really hasn't been capable of blowing out too many teams this season. He's definitely an interesting play in all formats. Another one is Victor Oladipo. I mean, the guy continues to play well, and they're leaning on him to really just run this show here, and that's what he's doing of late. 7 assists last night, 18 points, 7 rebounds. I really like him a lot tonight against Milwaukee, so a little bit easier opponent. Both teams are, they are where they are in the NBA East there, so it'll be fun to watch them just kind of rack up points against each other, and that's what Vegas is expecting them to do. Dwayne Wade, he's another guy tonight, 24, 5, and 6 against Sacramento earlier this season. You're looking at one of the easiest calls in the night just because we know Sacramento sucks against shooting guards. I mean, it's been the way of the world for quite a while now, and coming off a big game against the Lakers, he's been playing well. Really over the last stretch or so, and when he's been getting minutes, and his minutes on the road are a little bit different over the last 10 games or so. Looking cheap, there's guys like Evan Turner that catch my eye, Contavious Caldwell-Pope, Wesley Matthews, just because Chandler Parsons is out right now, tougher matchup. I'm a little hesitant on the Dallas backcourt just because of that situation, but I don't mind Matthews. Outside of that, I won't be targeting guys like Felton or Harris in any situation like that. I'm likely going to be sticking in that Booker range for cash tonight. He's got a safe floor if he can limit the turnovers. FanDuel, those turnovers are a little killer compared to just the full -1, and that's the -0.5 on DK. So that is something to consider from Booker one side to another. But outside of that, I think Evan Turner is kind of one of my favorite sneaky plays of the night, especially if Crowder plays, who's going to be questionable just because he played last night coming off the injury. But I mean, Turner's going to be a guy who's going to be right around 29, 30 minutes nightly anyway. And in a matchup like this one, he can definitely go off and hit his usual 30 fantasy points. So I'm definitely looking at him for that price. I think he's a great play and a great exposure to that Celtics and Warriors game. Digging down low, it's not a night to really punt at shooting guard. I think as far as you're going to go is about Wesley Matthews in that 5K range. Because really below that, you can look at Josh Richardson, who had really a poor night shooting the ball wise against the Lakers. It was really a downer, 0-8 from the field. But, I mean, the guy's been playing really well of late. I'll look for him definitely to bounce back against this Kings team. So that's about as low as you need to go at small forward tonight. And really you can stick in that Beal, Booker, Middleton range, or even pay up if you want. Small forward, it's really top heavy. You're looking at Braun if he plays. Yes, he coming off rest the other night, but he is on the back-to-back. Going up against Atlanta, the Cavs are kind of pushing for their one spot here, trying to get that top seed going into the playoffs. Braun, when he's been out there, has been crushing 50, 67, 45, and 51, and 66 over the last 5 games. He's been cruising. Atlanta really don't have much to match up against him, as we saw earlier this season, 19, 11, and 8. He's been kind of on those triple-double watches of late, and I will definitely be looking for him to come close tonight, especially against this Atlanta team who they do struggle in rebounding. They have been great on defense of late, but not a real matchup threat to Bron there. Giannis, the big letdown the other night against Phoenix. Really, he's been kind of coming back down to earth of late. The minutes have been fluctuating back and forth, 40, 26, 32. Hasn't been particularly great. Only took 5 shots in that Phoenix game, which was odd. Personal fouls, he did have 4. It is an average matchup tonight against Orlando. I am looking at that Milwaukee-Orlando game sitting at 207. Milwaukee with a 105 total. Giannis, you know what? Sneaky GPP play tonight. I think people are definitely going to be off of him, as many are, going to just be recency bias against him. But Giannis definitely an intriguing GPP play because sitting between Melo and LeBron there, I don't see the ownership being too high. Looking in that mid-range, Robert Covington, he's a guy I'm on tonight. Really, he's going to get 30 minutes just because, the 76ers are without pretty much everyone in that front court. He's going to see some time at the 4, going to play some time at the 3. Both matchups that are particularly favorable against Charlotte. I don't mind it. He's a guy who's just been logging 30, 35, fantasy points night in and night out. It's been solid against Charlotte in 3 games this season, 14, 6, and 2 on average. We know this guy can rack up steals on the defensive side. He's averaged nearly 2 per game in the last 4. Be looking for him to do that tonight. Safe play in all formats. Really just because there's not a lot of options in that small forward range. You're looking also at Tobias Harris, Luol Deng, kind of a little bit more of the safer options. I think Covington has more of the upside. Same with Deng. Tobias kind of that safe 30 fantasy point floor there. And I love him against Dallas in this front court. So you can definitely look their way. Otto Porter's another one. He's been playing consistently well. A guy that's kind of usually always a GPP guy for me. But going up against Phoenix in this total tonight in this matchup, I like him a lot. Kind of hard to fade. He's been over 25 fantasy points. Really in all but 2 games over the last 10. So I'll be looking his way again tonight. Getting exposure to that Washington team at a pretty cheap price. And they do have a lot of 5 to 6K range guys that you can really take a look at. That's not Wall or Gortat. If Jay Crowder plays tonight, his price has come down since the injury. Definitely worth a look if there's no minutes restriction. You have to keep an eye on that. Coming off, a game against Portland where he went 13-10 with 2 assists and 2 steals, played 34 minutes. Looked great out there. In a matchup against Golden State, this is, pretty favorable for him just as far as the pace, the amount of peripheral stats that can add up to his scoring. So I'll definitely be looking at him, and I think he's an interesting swerve off PJ Tucker, who is so up and down. You're looking at 49 points the last game out, then Minnesota 16, Boston 32, then 17 against Sacramento. We know Tucker. We know he has the upside. We also know that he has a floor that's pretty unbearable for cash games. But GPP is definitely worth a look. Outside of that, you're really pushing it. I don't trust guys like Joe Johnson, Omri Caspi, Harrison Barnes. I just can't buy into them tonight. Derek Williams, he's a guy to keep an eye on. If Kristaps Porzingis sits, played 34 minutes last time out against Dallas, went 15-8-2. I think he's in that range again tonight against a bad Brooklyn team. And if he sits, you're definitely looking at Williams being one of the better value plays on the slate. Look at power forward, and Cousins is out tonight, suspended for the game against the Heat. Disappointing. Costa Koufos, Willie Cauley-Stein going to be a bump. Koufos going to be my trusted guy down at center for pretty cheap. It's not a great matchup against Miami, but it is one that he can pay off that cheap price tag with. But Draymond Green, he's kind of your top option tonight. You're looking at Boston struggling against power forwards and centers over the last, year and a half, 2 years. So Green going to be a top play for me tonight. He's been playing really well of late over the last 6 games, 16, 10, and 7. Also, his defensive stats are always up. And Boston ranks right around the middle of the league in turnovers per game. But in this type of matchup, you're looking at Golden State with a 117 total. Green's definitely going to get his. And he's just a cheaper play in comparison to Curry. I just think he's a better points per dollar play than Thompson at times, more trustworthy in that aspect. So Green, my top warrior usually, and he will be tonight. And I'll be locking him into pretty much 99% of my lineups. Millsap, Kevin Love, definitely great GPP options tonight, just because, one, they're going up against each other. The matchups aren't, obvious outside of Kevin Love's, but Kevin Love isn't the most trustworthy player. But Atlanta struggles rebounding the ball. That's something, Kevin Love can come in and do. You're looking at him. He's doubled in the last 5 games. He really shot poorly in that Houston game, but outside that, 60%, 52%, 57%. So he's bounced back a little bit. I definitely like him against this Atlanta front court. They struggle against defending big men. So he was definitely an interesting candidate for GPP. Same with Millsap, just because of the defensive upside that he brings. You saw that against Chicago. 6 blocks and a steal. He only scored 11 points with 11 rebounds and still scored 44 DK points. So definitely intriguing because this one's got kind of a playoff feel to it, going to be a possible playoff matchup. I'll definitely be looking at those two in tournaments because I don't think many will. Going a bit cheaper, you're looking at guys, Derek Favors, if he's questionable. You're going to be looking at Trey Lyles, kind of picking up some slack down there, who I like a lot tonight in this matchup. Rudy Gobert takes on just a little bit of a tick up in usage, but mainly you see Gordon Hayward and Mack, who are going to be the guys. Lyles came in and stepped in with 24 minutes last time when Favors left the game. Scored 18 points in those 24 minutes. In the matchup against Golden State, look for him in an easier matchup against Minnesota tonight. He's definitely a guy to keep an eye on as far as value goes. Outside of that, guys like Marvin Williams, Jabari Parker, those are definitely interesting candidates. Parker's playing really well of late, 16, 5, and 2. 4 games, over the last 4 games, they're shooting 51%. Love the matchup against Orlando. They struggled against power forwards this season. He's an easy cash game play. Also GPP target tonight just because of that price tag below 6K. He's shown off the upside of late, so you can also look at him. You can look at Henson more so in tournaments just because he's a cheaper version of him, has that big block upside, and definitely the matchups there tonight. Markieff Morris, everyone's going to be talking about the revenge game going up against his old squad, and minutes-wise, he's been up and down. Of course, he left that game against Minnesota, but really he's been kind of in the high 20s. He can get into the 30s at times. I like the matchup for him. You're looking at Phoenix, who struggled to hang on to the ball. They allowed a bunch of turnovers. They pushed the pace. You're looking at this total being one of the higher ones of the night. Markieff Morris has that upside. We've seen it. We've seen it a handful of times in Washington so far. I think he is going to be a little bit chalkier than expected just because of the whole narrative going on and that price tag. It's not a big risk. So definitely keep him in consideration, but I definitely will be limiting my exposure. Thomas Robinson, he's one guy that needs to be mentioned just because if Thaddeus Young sits, if Brook Lopez maybe gets taken out another night, you're looking at him being the guy who kind of steps in and plays well. Yeah, he only saw 23 minutes with Brook Lopez being out last night. If Thaddeus Young was to sit, he would be the guy who takes on more minutes. But if either of them sit, you're taking a look at Thomas Robinson being one of the most beneficiary plays down at power forward for value. Outside of that, you're not looking at too much. Moving over to center, not a lot of injuries to worry about, but keep an eye on Brook Lopez. Just leaning towards the end of the season, there were rumors of shutting him down. That would be something to keep an eye on. Kosta Koufos is going to be the one filling in for Boogie, but up top, really hard to see me paying up for Whiteside or Towns when Drummond's right there, just because Whiteside, yes, he's in a good spot. He has that big upside. I think he's fine playing tournaments, playing cash, and even tournaments. I just think I'm going to take the discount with Drummond there. Averaging 20 and 15 over the last 4 games, 2.3 blocks per game. The guy's cruising right now. Gets a nice friendly matchup against Dallas, who 26 in the rebound. They struggle against centers. I'll definitely be looking at Drummond all day and most of my formats. So outside of that, really you're looking at Vooch. Played 25 minutes, played really well in that matchup against Indiana last night. If he can get off the minutes restriction a little bit here, he's definitely worth a look at that price tag going up against Milwaukee. Gortat, he's another one that I'm keeping an eye on. I really don't mind him against Phoenix. They're a perceived tough matchup, but allow a high field goal percentage. They're a slightly above average rebounding team. I think you can definitely look at him and Len just trying to get exposure to that matchup as Len's been pretty decent of late and kind of back up, and they're relying on him to play heavy minutes, 37 and 39 over the last 2 games. He's a streaky guy and came down in price tag, so take a look at him as well. Rudy Gobert, with favors out, he's not going to be a guy who's just all of a sudden going to be shooting the ball a ton, but he's going to get maybe a look or two more down low. The guy's coming off big rebounding games of late, 11, 19, 18, nine blocks in the last 3 games, back-to-back 40 fantasy point games. Matchup against Minnesota is pretty favorable for him tonight. Love the price tag. I love his upside. You can definitely keep an eye on him. You kind of get into a GPP range with guys like Jared Sullinger right now, Al Jefferson. They definitely have the upside. Willie Cauley-Stein as well, going to see a bigger minutes, but tougher matchup. Keep in mind that those guys are more reserved for GPPs just because they carry a pretty fair amount of risk. As always, recording at noon. Please keep an eye on the injury news going down the stretch here. With guys, sitting out for rest and stuff like that. I'll do my best to post in the comments section to keep an eye on those. But also check out dailyfantasycafe.com. All the news and content's going to be up there. And that'll wrap it up here.